If you want to start a debate or an argument, just bring up the word politics. Either that or religion seem to be one of those things that spontaneously ends up in a discussion, or maybe even, more controversial than just that. And of course, right now, we're in the midst of the political season, with the primaries beginning. Well, with that all going on, you got to stop for a second and think, well, what is my perspective on it? What should a Christian have as his or her perspective when it comes to politics? Does God say anything about that? And in fact, when you think about it, should our political views be impacted by our faith? Does our Christian faith impact the way we view politics? Or is that just a whole nother thing? Well, the fact is, if you're a true Christian, the Bible and your Christian faith has to impact how you view the political world, how you view governments. In fact, the Bible is very, very clear that if we are God's people, His view supersedes everything in our life. We know that passage in Matthew 6:33 where it says that we should seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. Well, does that impact the way we view politics and we view government? Well, it certainly should, because God is very clear. He tells us that what He purposes, what He proposes, what He plans will come to pass. In fact, in the book of Daniel, there's a very powerful prophecy that points us in this direction. It's over in Daniel chapter 4 and beginning over in verse 34. Here he's talking to King Nebuchadnezzar and dealing with him, and Nebuchadnezzar comes to realize something very powerful. And it connects with this whole time of politics that we're even in today. Here's what Nebuchadnezzar says about God. Verse 34, he says, His dominion, this is God's dominion, is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom is from generation to generation. So he labels it right for what it is. Going on, he says, all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. He does according to His will. And so as he concludes this thought, he says, no one can restrain His hand or say to God, what have you done? So Nebuchadnezzar's view on the political season is God's in charge. God is ultimately in charge. And when we understand that principle, I think it can begin to frame how we view this whole political season. Because when you really get down to it, politics, I believe, is another way, a method that God can use to accomplish His ultimate purposes. In fact, just a couple of verses before this, in verse 17 of chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar recognizes that very fact. He says, the Most High rules in the kingdom of men. And that's what it comes down to. In so many ways, it doesn't matter who gets elected, whether it's here in the United States or anywhere around the world, because God's purposes will be achieved, no matter what. And in fact, if you put Romans 8:28 in there, no matter what happens, He can turn those things for good, for His own very purposes. So maybe the lesson is, don't get too upset about the political season and the candidates and all the things that are going to be happening over the next several months. Because ultimately, what Nebuchadnezzar realized will come to pass. The Most High rules, and ultimately, His purposes will be achieved. That's BT Daily. We'll see you next time.